SLT Fibre and experience the power of fibre technology. Sri Lanka's only super fast internet connection. SLT Fibre. Call 1212 now.
In your headlines tonight, AG hits back. A revision application filed against the IGP and former Defence Secretary's bail order. Clouds burst. Strong winds blow through the island with landslide threats also issued. Ending a corrupt practice. A sucrose level introduced for tea.
Tea inspectors are undertaking regular checks and any errant manufacturers are taken to task.
Lurking dangers. Face up caught in a storm over privacy concerns. All that and much more coming up on First at 9 this Thursday, the 18th of July 2019.
මුහුණ සති කීපයකට කලින් Fair and Lovely men ගෑවට පස්සේ මාක්ස් අඩු වෙලා fairness වැඩි වෙලා.
මාක්ස් අඩු කරලා ඔයාගේ fairness standard එක වැඩි කරගන්න. Fair and Lovely men anti-marks cream.
From AdaDerana, this is AdaDerana First at 9. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
Strong winds are blowing across the country as we speak, with its effects also felt in Colombo. Going out on the streets even proved difficult owing to the winds, and most motorists had to stop on roadside until the weather conditions were favourable enough to set off on their way. Now, the Department of Meteorology issued warnings of heavy rainfall and strong winds to most provinces of the country over the next 24 hours. Well, it's best to stay indoors when winds hit where you're living. Sri Lankan Navy, in the meantime, advised the fishing community who have set off for southern, southwestern and western seas to return to the nearest harbour as quickly as possible. The Navy spokesperson, meanwhile, informed us a short while ago that 9 fishermen who met with an accident near the Galle harbour have been rescued.
Strong gusts of wind of up to 50 to 60 kilometers per hour were experienced today in the provinces of Western, Southern, Central, Sabaragamu and Northwestern. Other than a reporter on the ground witnessed motorbikes travelling along the Galle Road in Colombo being stopped on roadside until the wind subsided. Riders received assistance of traffic police officers in the area.
The wind speed could also again today expected from Mana to the Patuil via Colombo and Galle, and the fishermen and the naval communities as well has to be very vigilant with that prevailing situation, not to go for the fishing and the activities of the particular mentioned area. These sea areas could be very rough and very dangerous.
Meanwhile, the National Building Research Organisation issued landslide early warnings to the Ratnapura district today following heavy rainfall exceeding 100 millimetres over the past 24 hours. A ground subsidence was also reported in Vevelvatta. The Disaster Management Centre, meanwhile, warned of very heavy rainfall of over 150 millimetres to Ratnapura and Kalutara districts during the next 24 hours. The DMC warns of potential floods in the area of Kudava in Ratnapura as water levels of rivers Kalu and Kalani have reached spill level.
Rising water levels very rapidly observed in Ratnapura upper stream area, especially the people who are being given the warning for the evacuation at Ratnapura Divisional Secretary area and Alapath, Kirella and Ayagama. So people who are living in that particular area, that they need to evacuate immediately for the safer evacuation locations. Still, the warning will be continued for the landslide in Ratnapura and Balangoda. People need to pay a lot of attention over the possibility of landslides. And 117 call center number is completely open.
Following heavy rainfall in the central province, spill gates of the Vimala Surendra reservoir are now open. In the meantime, 23 persons were displaced after 6 houses submerged in the Mayfield estate near the Hatton Nuarelia Road.
Also in our top story tonight, Attorney General AdaDerana today filed a revision application against the bail order granted to IGP Pooja Jayasundara and former Defence Secretary Fernando, who were arrested over their failure to prevent the Easter Sunday terror attacks. The application seeks a suspension to the orders which were issued on the 9th by the Colombo Magistrates Court.
Attorney General AdaDerana filed a revision application in Colombo High Court today against the bail order given to IGP Pooja Jayasundara, who is currently on compulsory leave, and former Secretary of Defence Fernando. In the application, he points out that granting bail to the duo, who were produced before court over the failure to prevent the Easter Sunday attacks, is illegal, unjust, unfair and arbitrary. In a statement, the Attorney General's Coordinating Secretary, State Counsel Nisha Rajaratna said the revision application made it evident to court that letting hundreds of lives be lost by disregarding prior intelligence of an attack is a murder charge. In addition, it has also made evident that discarding that charge by the Magistrates Court is also illegal, unjust, unfair and an arbitrary act. The Attorney General also highlights that intelligence information of a pending attack with details of targets, times and method were all at hand, and that the magistrate has not attributed due gravity to the facts by calling them unverified information in the bail order, despite the relevant information being submitted as attachments. He had also pointed out that the revision application is filed against the partial, baseless and unjust bail order granted without taking into account that the duo were pre-informed of intelligence information of an attack on Easter Sunday. Accordingly, the Attorney General sought an order from the High Court suspending the bail order granted by the Colombo Magistrates Court. The revision application is due to be taken up before Colombo High Court Judge Vikum Kaluarachi on the 23rd of this month.
A group of parliamentarians of the United National Party called on the heads of mission of the European Union to discuss President Maithripala Sirisena's decision to execute the capital punishment on convicted drug dealers. Issuing a statement, the EU later said that during the meeting, the heads of mission restated the strong and unequivocal opposition of the European Union and its member states to the death penalty in all circumstances and in all cases.
A group of United National Party parliamentarians, including Bandulalal Bandarigoda, Kavinda Jayawardena and Hector Puhami, met with the ambassadors of the European Union regarding the private bill to abolish the death penalty. The group arrived at the EU head office in Colombo and spoke to media afterwards.
As a country, we don't manufacture drugs. Drugs are being brought to Sri Lanka. Anyone wants to fight the drug war, the best way is to do it to make sure that imports to the Sri Lanka and distribution has to be stopped, and the consumers has to be rehabilitated, and especially the prison system has to be reformed. So in order to fight the war on drugs, as a party we have been very clear that we are against the death penalty. As the members of the parliament, we will vote to abolish the death penalty.
In the meantime, the European Union issued a statement in agreement with the embassies of France, Germany, Italy, Netherlands, Romania and the High Commission of the United Kingdom. The statement relating to the meeting held with the UNP parliamentarians said that during the talks, heads of mission of European Union restated the strong and unequivocal opposition of the EU and its member states to capital punishment in all circumstances and in all cases. It further says that the heads reiterated their call to Sri Lanka to maintain its moratorium on the death penalty with a view towards complete abolition.
On to the much discussed and controversial US agreements. The United States is insistent that it does not intend to build a military base or establish a permanent military presence in Sri Lanka. Speaking on behalf of her country, US Ambassador to Sri Lanka, Elena B. Teplitz, said that the United States will not have any control over Sri Lanka and Sri Lankan land through any agreement. Teplitz expressed these views during an our Facebook live chat yesterday, which focused on the strength of US-Sri Lanka ties and recent rumors circulating over several agreements concerning the two parties.
US Ambassador to Sri Lanka, Lena B. Teplitz, started her one-hour Facebook Live chat yesterday by responding to heavy criticism over the three controversial US-Sri Lanka agreements, the Visiting Forces Agreement, Acquisition and Cross-Servicing Agreement, and the Millennium Challenge Corporation. She emphasized that the United States has no intent to build a military base or establish a permanent military presence in Sri Lanka. She said that her country will not have any land ownership or control through the Millennium Challenge Corporation agreement. Teplitz went on to say that the MCC is not a military agreement and not contingent to the VFA and AXA, while emphasizing that it is a compact or a $480 million development assistance agreement to support economic development in Sri Lanka. She also insisted that it is not a loan. Teplitz also went on to say that the United States extends support and assistance to Sri Lanka only at the invitation of the Sri Lankan government. Focusing on the Acquisition and Cross-Services Agreement, she said the agreement is designed to provide a legal framework for logistical support between the US and Sri Lankan militaries and to exchange supplies and services as well as payment for those supplies and services. On the Visiting Forces Agreement, which is under negotiation and has not been concluded, Teplitz clarified that it addresses the status of US military and civilian employees of the US Department of Defense who may temporarily be present in Sri Lanka for exercises or official duty at the invitation of the Sri Lankan government. During her live chat, the ambassador added that the United States has not and will not interfere or become directly involved in Sri Lanka's judiciary. She went on to insist that the US has sponsored training for Sri Lankan judges and lawyers at the request of the Sri Lankan government.
The British government continues to keep tabs on Sri Lanka's commitment to the resolutions it co-sponsored at the United Nations Human Rights Commission. In a recent parliamentary exchange between MP Teresa Villiers and Minister of State at the Foreign and Commonwealth Office Dr. Andrew Morrison, the latter says that British High Commissioner in Colombo holds regular talks on the implementation of the UNHRC resolutions with the Sri Lankan government. He also said that more is required than what is done at present in Sri Lanka.
Responding to a query by UK MP Teresa Villiers, Minister of State of the Foreign and Commonwealth Office Dr. Andrew Morrison says that the UK continues to encourage and support Sri Lanka to deliver the commitments it made to the UN Human Rights Council through the resolutions 30/1, 34/1 and 40/1. In a written response, Dr. Morrison has said, quote, "We firmly believe that this is the best framework for establishing truth and achieving justice and lasting reconciliation. The government has made these points regularly to the Sri Lankan ministers, including during a ministerial visit to Colombo in October and in a number of meetings since. The British High Commissioner in Colombo also holds regular discussions on the implementation of the UNHRC resolutions with the government of Sri Lanka." While saying that the UK in March welcomed the report on Sri Lanka's commitment to UNHRC resolutions, Dr. Morrison, however, says that more needs to be done. He adds that the UK has urged further progress on these issues and encouraged the government of Sri Lanka to deliver meaningful devolution through constitutional reform and to establish and then utilise credible mechanisms for transitional justice.
A contract to upgrade the railway track from Maho to Omanthe under Indian concessional financing was signed between Sri Lanka and India today. Through the agreement, over $91 million will be provided for the upgrade of approximately 130-kilometre long track, development of which had bypassed for over 130 years.
The contract agreement, which amounts to around $91.26 million to upgrade the railway track from Maho to Omanthe, was inked by Chairman and Managing Director of Ercon International Limited, Sunil Kumar Chowdhury, and the Minister of Transport and Civil Aviation in the presence of Minister Arjuna Ranatunga. The total length of the track that will be upgraded under Indian concessional financing between Maho and Omanthe would be around 130 kilometres, which includes 12 crossing stations, 7 halt stations and 78 level crossings. India has so far committed lines of credit worth around $1.3 billion for development of the railway sector in Sri Lanka.
We have been looking into this for last so many years. Now it has come to a stage where we have signed an agreement and just about to implementation to upgrade 133 kilometers, which has not been happening for last 115 years. The support India has given us, whether it is shipping, petroleum, or even now the transport has been immense. We implemented the Palali airport, which has been neglected for last so many years. By early September, we are looking at starting our first flights from Palali to southern India. As the transportation, the buses are concerned, our ministry has taken a massive step to get 2,000 luxury buses. EOI is to be called very soon. The paper has gone to the cabinet. We are looking at improving the entire transport standards in this country.
Its continuous support to develop the rail infrastructure of the country, following the success of completion of 250 kilometers rail network in the northern province of Sri Lanka.
Also in news tonight, World Bank Vice President for South Asia region Hartwig Schaefer says that the World Bank will increase assistance to Sri Lanka under 3 of its new operations. They include assisting the agriculture sector faced with climatic changes, irrigation, renewable energy, climate resilience, operations and renovations of tanks in rural areas. Schaefer's assurances came when he called on President Maithripala Sirisena at the President's official residence today, or rather President's office today. The President's media division said that Schaefer pledged the World Bank's monetary assistance to reduce budget gap so that the Sri Lankan economy could continue to borrow in the global market with a sound economic footing in reference to the Easter attacks. Schaefer, who is in Colombo to chair the World Bank Senior Regional Managers meeting, has said that the bank decided to hold its annual sessions in Colombo to show solidarity with Sri Lanka as the country is trying to restore normalcy after the terrible Easter Sunday attacks. Secretary to the National Police Commission Saman Dissanayake has been arrested by the Criminal Investigations Department in connection with the avant-garde floating armoury case. The NPC secretary was reportedly arrested while he was at the Sri Jayawardhanapura Hospital. The Colombo Fort Magistrate yesterday rejected the anticipatory bail application filed by Dissanayake, requesting to release him on bail if he was arrested over the case. Magistrate Ranga Dissanayake said that the court has no jurisdiction to grant bail to Dissanayake, who was named as a suspect in the avant-garde floating armoury case, as indictments are to be filed against him under the Firearms Ordinance. What's the threat to the new Face app? We'll talk about all that after this short break. Face app, a face editing photo application which ages or makes you younger by years, has become a viral sensation all over the globe, including in Sri Lanka. This app literally took over our social media timelines by storm. But come yesterday, the application was hit by privacy concerns, with users wondering as to what happens when those photos are edited. Even the FBI is asked to launch an investigation into the activities of this app. Now, this is something we must remain vigilant about.
A face-editing photo application became the centre of a viral phenomenon over the recent days as celebrities and normal people rushed to change their pictures to find out how they would look if they were old, young or a different genre. Concerns, however, erupted on the privacy of FaceApp users when on Monday night, Joshua Notzi, a software developer, warned people to be careful with FaceApp as it immediately uploads your photos without asking whether you choose one or not.
Using these really powerful deep learning AI tools to take people's photos and compare those to other photos of how people age. For this to work, it's taking your picture and everybody else's picture and putting it into a database, so you got tens of millions of pictures. What you don't know is, does that picture link back to me? You know, is it a situation where like my location, my personal information went with that picture?
Privacy concerns related to the app began to mount, and these concerns escalated further when people started to point out that the application is developed by Wireless Lab, a company based in Russia. US Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer called on the FBI and the Federal Trade Commission to immediately conduct a national security and privacy investigation into FaceApp. Schumer said that the smartphone application could pose national security and privacy risks for millions of US citizens. The Democratic National Committee also sent out an alert to the party's 2020 presidential candidates yesterday, warning them against using the app, pointing to its Russian provenance. Meanwhile, Information Technology Society Sri Lanka issued a special statement to media claiming that there are privacy threats posed on the app's users. Highlighting new information, ITSSL said that FaceApp could enter into the private photo gallery of the user without his or her knowledge and urged the general public to refrain from using the application. A French cybersecurity researcher who uses the pseudonym Elliot Alderson in the meantime investigated software developer Joshua Notzi's claims after his warning sparked concerns across the globe. He found out no such bulk uploading was going on and that FaceApp was only taking the specific photos users decided to submit. Amidst these developments, Joshua Notzi also admitted online that he was wrong about what the app was doing and about posting the accusations without testing it first. FaceApp also responded to the heavy criticism yesterday and denied selling or sharing user data with third parties. The company said in a statement, cited by TechCrunch, that most images are deleted from its servers within 48 hours of the upload date. It went on to say that although the company's research and development team is located in Russia, user data is not transferred to Russia. The question, however, remains, are these applications really safe? This is why cyber specialists always advise us to do our own research.
People should be concerned using something like FaceApp because you are sending your private information to a server God knows where. The most important thing they will tell you is what rights it wants on your machine. And those rights could be, for example, access to your phone contacts, to your email, or even the ability to get to your photos or your camera.
Welcome back in your business news. Minister of Plantation Industries Navin Dissanayake reveals plans to reach a barter deal with Iran where remuneration for oil purchased by Sri Lanka will be paid for with tea. Speaking at a media briefing held at the tea board today, the minister revealed that the tea production levels have come back to normal, stressing that the replanting of the bushes should be strengthened in order to maintain tea production levels.
So as you know, 73% of our production is coming from smallholders. So we need to increase the amount of good quality plants in the market and also make sure that the replanting happens, because we want to ensure that the tea production levels remain the same or increases. I'm happy to note that the tea production levels have now come back to normal. There is a dip in the prices normally for June and July, but we expect the prices to increase in August. Finally, we have been able to get over the red tape and the government procedures, as you know, the government tender procedures. The media may have been hearing many stories of Ceylon tea getting adulterated with sugar syrup, molasses, etc. for the past few years. Sri Lanka Tea Board has put an end to this menace by fixing the baseline for glucose. Tea inspectors are undertaking regular checks at the factory level and any errant manufacturers are taken to task. Trade with Iran on the face of economic sanctions. Mama Visheshemma Petroleum CPC
I discussed with the Ceylon Petroleum Corporation extensively regarding the $240 million bill of fuel that has to be paid to Iran, and they agreed to repay that amount to Iran. We think that our tea market in Iran will be affected due to sanctions imposed on Iran by the US. Therefore, we like to enter into a barter system with Iran, and they too have agreed to this. The CPC has agreed to settle the outstanding fuel bill by paying Iran with tea, of which the equivalent amount will be deducted from the outstanding bill.
Sri Lanka's external sector remained relatively stable in May this year as the year-to-year trade deficit continued to narrow significantly. The latest central bank external sector performance review for the month shows that the deficit in the trade account narrowed to $823 million compared to $933 million in the corresponding 6 months or corresponding period of last year. The tourism sector also showed a heavy decline as expected following the Easter Sunday attacks.
Outlines that the external sector remained relatively stable in May this year, supported by a contracting trade deficit, which narrowed to $823 million from $933 million in May 2018. According to the report, the considerable reduction in the trade deficit in May 2019 was due to the decline in import expenditure by 3.9% on year-on-year basis and an increase of export earnings by 4%. According to the central bank, the current account recorded a surplus of $423 million in the first quarter of 2019, as against a deficit of $587 million recorded in the corresponding period of 2018, mainly driven by the significant contraction of the budget deficit. Furthermore, the financial account of the balance of payments in May was supported by the 6th tranche of the extended fund facility of the International Monetary Fund, while foreign investments in government securities recorded a net outflow. What is more, the country's gross official reserves stood at $6.7 billion at end of 2019, which was equivalent to 3.9 months of imports. Subsequently, along with the proceeds of the international sovereign bond of $2 billion, gross official reserves are estimated to have increased to around $8.9 billion by end of June 2019. Earnings for the month of June recorded from tourism showed a decline of 70.8% on year-on-year basis, reflecting the impact of Easter Sunday attacks. However, tourist arrivals in June are expected to have recovered, with almost a doubling of the number of arrivals in comparison to May 2019. In the meantime, workers' remittances amounted to $562 million in May 2019, recording a decline of 3.1%. Analysing the export sector, the central bank says that the earnings from agricultural exports increased on a year-on-year basis. Accordingly, export earnings from tea increased for the first time since April 2018 due to high export volumes, despite lower average export prices when compared to May 2018. Earnings from the merchandise exports are reported to have increased by 4% on year-on-year basis to $961 million in May 2019 due to an increase in industrial and agricultural exports. The deficit in the trade account narrowed significantly in May in comparison to the corresponding month of 2018 due to the combined effect of an increase in exports and a reduction in imports. Meanwhile, on a cumulative basis, the deficit in the trade account contracted further by $1,633 million to $3,281 million during the first 5 months of 2019 in comparison to the corresponding period of 2018.
Taking you to the stock market now, Sri Lankan equities rose for a 7th consecutive session today to hit a more than 4-month closing high led by gains in diversified and banking stocks. The all-share price index gained 0.89% to 5,695.69, its highest close since the 8th of March, with a turnover of 625.9 million rupees, and foreign investors sold a net 17.3 million rupees worth of shares. The index has risen 1% last week, its third consecutive weekly gain so far. But the index is down about 5.89% so far this year. With that, here's a brief look at today's market performance.
The profit taking witnessed in the secondary market saw the belly-ended yield curve shifting slightly upward, with the overall market continuing to see a low volume. Equity market index was on an uptrend during the first hours of trading to peak at 5695, followed by a sideways movement to close at 5696, recording a 4-month high, gaining 50 points, while the big caps, John Keells and Dialog being the main contributors.
Now, the Sri Lankan rupee ended at 177 rupees and 37 cents against the US dollar today. The rupee rose 0.37 last week and is up 3.93% so far this year and has dropped 16% in 2018. Here's a look at how the Sri Lankan rupee traded against other major currencies around the world. sports news and international news will follow after this short break. Iran says it seized a foreign tanker and its 12 crew on Sunday for smuggling fuel in the Gulf. State television quoted Iran's Revolutionary Guards as saying the ship had been smuggling 1 million litres of fuel. It is not yet confirmed if it is the UAE-based Rhea tanker that stopped transmitting its position as it sailed through the Strait of Hormuz on Sunday. Iran said earlier this week it had come to the aid of a broken-down tanker without naming the Rhea. It said it had towed the foreign tanker into an Iranian waters for repairs after receiving a request for assistance on Sunday. And taking you quickly to sports news, former New Zealand captain Richie McCaw believes that Australia has the potential to cause yet another Rugby World Cup surprise later this year in Japan. Speaking today at an event looking ahead to the tournament, McCaw, a two-time World Cup winner, said he expects Australia to come good at the tournament despite having won just 4 of their 13 games last year. Australia have been drawn in a potentially tricky Pool D with 6 Nations Championships, Wales, and will enter the tournament without the country's 3-time Player of the Year, Israel Folau.
And I think sometimes where people have sort of...
That's all from us here tonight. Thank you for joining us. Do log on to www.adaderana.lk. Good night.